This is the Crystal Chronicles, your Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia podcast, with Erolai, Kreese, and Mark, bringing you all your DiFFOO news and talk. Welcome to Season 4, the LDBT era. Now let's start the show.
Hey everybody, this is Mark from the Crystal Chronicles, and you're about to watch episode 126 of our podcast, talking about Warrior of Light, the Raid, 8 event, all those wonderful things, recorded on Thursday, November 5th, 2020. I was not able to be there. Some of you know I was in the hospital. My daughter had surgery yesterday. She's doing good. She's still in the hospital, probably be there for a few days. So thank you to my co-host, Kreese, Erole, and Macnol from DissidiaFFOO.com, who really stepped up, got the show out there, covered all those great events. You're going to enjoy it. It's a great conversation. It's wonderful to have Macnol on the show. Again, I wish I could have been there, but I was with my family doing what I needed to do. So a special thank you to them. Kreese, you can check Kreese out on Twitch. He has his own Twitch channel. Erole has her own YouTube, Laylee, on YouTube. And, of course, Macnol, DissidiaFFOO.com. Encourage you to support him on Patreon. Thank you. They're all dear friends. They did a great job. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Crystal Chronicles podcast. Today is November 5th, Thursday, and I am your host today, Kreese. Sadly, Mark is not joining us because he had some family stuff coming up. His daughter had to go to the hospital for an important surgery. She is fine, luckily, but because of that, Mark is with her, taking care of her. Obviously, all of our thoughts and prayers with Mark and his family during this time, but because of that, he will not be joining us. Luckily, we do have a special guest with us tonight. Macnol was willing to step up and join us. So, Macnol, how are you doing tonight?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm pretty well. Very stoked with Lufenia, but that's talk for later.
Yep, that's great. We also, on the show, have Erolai, as usual. Ero, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic. I've been prepping for the show today, and then earlier in the week, I've just been taking care of a lot of little things that add up to making it very nice, as a very nice week overall, completely. So that's good for me. I'm hoping that the rest of this week, I'm going to be doing volunteer work this weekend with the food pantry, so I'm very excited to do that as well, as always.
Excellent, excellent. Great. I'm glad everyone's doing well. On my own end, I'm doing okay this week. A little tired. It's been a little hectic. I've got some exams coming up that I have to... I'm not taking them, luckily. I am administering them, but I've been getting those ready. And speaking of hospital stuff, actually, Shara, if you remember from last week, ran a charity stream, a 24-hour charity marathon over the weekend. Our own Nino Spellgood and several other community members helped him as special guest hosts during that. And during the charity stream, Shara actually got a lot of community support. He was able to raise $890 for Children's Miracle Hospital. So congratulations to Shara for that successful charity stream. I sadly was not able to join him due to internet issues, but I'm really excited for that. And I'm very grateful for everyone who was able to join Shara over the weekend and show their support for that stream. Okay, with that out of the way, we will move on to news of the day, or I guess news of the week as it was. So this week we got a new content drop. The big thing was we got Warrior of Light's costume plus gem bundle. It was a returning gem bundle. It's the one with his red armor and red hair. We've seen this before. It's nothing special. I like this costume and gem bundle. I think I got it the first time it came out. But if you've missed it in the past, it's available again for a few weeks, so feel free to jump on it. I believe Vivi's costume and gem bundle is still available if you've not jumped on it yet and you still want to get it, so keep that in mind. There was also, just before we started recording, an update that hit the game. I think it was just a language change, Arrow, or was it an actual behavior change for Yuri?
It's a textual thing only. It's been in the game, apparently, but we just had no way to check it before until now. So apparently, Chalinka's prayer protects Yuri from any HP draining type attacks from the party. So, you know, like how skill 1 and skill 2 normally would drain his HP, unless you had Chalinka's prayer. Well, apparently that works with anything, because it works with Vivi's Doomsday. So he does not take HP damage from Vivi's Doomsday effect. I don't know how relevant that's going to be, considering he's like an older character, and he you know, he's going to get character boards in, I think, a couple more, maybe another month or two, but it's there. So maybe he'll get early LD and at anniversary. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll see how much interaction that's actually going to cause. I don't know how many people were actually using Yuri recently for any content. Arrow, you're a big Yuri fan. When was the last time you used Yuri for anything?
It's been a while. I like him. I think it was Alexander Chaos, but he was pretty good there. So I don't know. I'll probably character board him when he gets it. I think he's in like the first or second batch of level 80s. So I'll definitely be there for that. But I don't know if I'll be using him for anything outside of Synergy for a while until he gets LD.
Well, with that,
While I think I'm
sorry.
kind of hoping I would like to see him receive early adjustments or a new weapon earlier. But I think it's just more likely that they realized they had to inform that, because otherwise there would be droves of people reporting a bug when they paired him with Vivi accidentally. So I think it's mostly just an adjustment, but not really a sign of anything else to come, sadly.
Probably not a sign of things to come. It's since they've now put it as actual text in the game, it probably is an intended interaction, though, and not just a bug. Because it was a bug, they probably would have put it as a bug text and not a game update, and made that concrete as text.
I agree. I think it's just an accidental feature.
Yeah. It is an interesting interaction, and as Mino points out in chat, look out for future party members that train Brave now that they've put that interaction on Yuri's Chalinka's prayer buff, because that's an odd thing to think about. Okay, the other thing we got to talk about this week as far as news goes is that we also got early November 2020 Chocobo monthly missions. Nothing special here to really talk about. You got to use Warrior of Light, Thancred, and Laguna in your party. You got to defeat some Lamias, which I think are in 8's Lost Chapter if you did not go and chase them through other sources. Glacial Eyes were part of the most recent story chapter, so you could have gotten some there, but there are other options in Lost Chapters and story chapters to go get them from as well. So you probably got some by just completing the most recent story chapter. If you did not want to wait for 8's Lost Chapter to drop to get the Lamias, I believe, Macnol, you listed Renoa's Lost Chapter as a place to get Lamias easily in your guide.
Yes, I did. It's rather quick to complete Chocobo panels, so it's very relaxed for this one.
Yeah, the biggest thing is just running Warrior of Light 40 times. But again, you'll do that pretty easily because he's the 2-week LD character right now.
And he's a great choice for his co-op too.
Oh yeah, I have not been running Warrior of Light for his co-op because I have been using Thancred, but we'll get to that in a minute. I think that's it for the news of the week. Did I miss anything?
No, I don't think so. Unless you want to mention, I guess 8's event just dropped.
We'll get to 8's Lost Chapter in a little bit. We have a lot to talk about with the story chapter that also dropped earlier this week on Sunday evening. which is what is next on the docket. So, Sunday evening for us in the United States, Act 2 finale, Part 2, Warriors of Light dropped. And with it, we got 3 reworks, 2 new EX realizations, and the final EX realizations for characters in the game, and Warrior of Light's LD and BT weapons. We also obviously got the story chapter, we got the raid event, we also got our first Lufenia fight. So we have a lot to unpack for this story chapter. I think to begin, what we'll do is we'll go through the characters, we'll do podcast polls, we'll talk a little bit about the story. The story's pretty short this time. There isn't a lot to talk about as far as the story goes. Nino saying he's doing the sync quest for us. And then we'll talk a little bit about the raid event. There isn't too much to the raid event. It was pretty straightforward this time. I don't think we have to spend too much time on the Chaos or Challenge quest for this fight, and we'll switch over to the Lufenia discussion, which I think we'll spend a decent amount of time talking about. So, first things first, Warrior of Light, he's our LDBT character. He also got a rework. His rework was pretty decent. The big changes were he got increases to buff duration, so Will of Light and Shield now last longer. He got increases to Brave Overflows on Shining Shield and Throw Buckler. And that's pretty much it for the base changes. He also got some increases to the number of Brave hits on his HP++. And mostly just Brave potency changes. Nothing too spectacular on his base kit. Just things that tuned up his kit a little bit to make it so he didn't have to lean on refreshing his buffs so often, and made it so that he could actually hit some overflow caps, or made it harder for him to hit overflow caps. The things that really tweaked his kit were his LD and his BT. His LD ability is Bitter End, which is a single target attack that batteries the party based on Int Brave. Does splash damage, but the big thing it does is it applies a new unique buff to Warrior of Light, gives the party shield, applies lock to all targets, and Guardian Shield does a couple of things. One, it gives Warrior of Light more party auras, so it raises party attack, Int Brave, Max Brave, and defense. It also makes it so that his shields now reduce HP damage that the party takes as long as Guardian Shield is active. With 3 uses of Bitter End and 10 turns of Guardian Shield per use of Bitter End, he can basically protect the party from HP damage loss as long as he can maintain shields for 30 turns of a fight. For most fights, as long as you're not really dragging them out, he can protect the party from a lot of HP damage, basically. This makes him an amazing tank now, and combine that with the fact that he can now apply lock to multiple bosses in a single action, it really shores up his tanking abilities, plus increases his party auras. The defense bonus is nice, but the fact that he's increasing attack and Brave and Max Brave more is really, really nice. His burst ability is Ultimate Shield. It's an AoE Brave plus HP attack, nothing special. The burst effect is that it increases party overflow, and also gives the party Brave regen based on their current shield value, which means if Warrior of Light is able to keep his Shining Shield and his shields up on his party members, he can generate a lot of Brave for the party pretty well as long as they're going for those 4 turns. So it's a pretty nice Brave battery for a few turns of the fight. Obviously, Warrior of Light has a lot of high turn rate abilities, so if you're pairing him with slow characters, this can be a problem, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. You just have to play your cards right. In general, this makes Warrior of Light a very good tank again. He's always been in that niche of being a very good defensive tank if you stack things in your favor, and this basically re-cements him in that role. I've been playing with him with his LD. He's been working very well. Obviously, you want to lean into the fact that he wants that high Int Brave stat to increase the value of his shields, to increase his Brave battery stats. So keep that in mind. You want to focus on his Int Brave, while you don't want to sacrifice too much of his attack so that he's not hitting for nothing, too. I think that's the major points I want to hit from the character stats wise. Arrow, what are your thoughts on Warrior of Light so far? Did you get his LD? Have you been playing with him?
Yeah. I actually got the LD on free pull, so I was like, I think I'm gonna build him. So I did, and I do have 9, so I can actually make the proper comparison. They do not play the same. Yes, they have shields, but beyond that, they are not the same. Warrior of Light is very, very newbie friendly. I appreciate this because he is your first character you're going to get when you open up the game and you start it out. And he's very friendly in co-ops to play. No, it's just so hard to screw up playing this guy. Any button's always a good button, I feel like, with Warrior of Light and casual play. Now, when you're going into higher end play, he's very good at what he does. He's going to give you those shields. He's going to protect your party now from HP attacks. I really like that shield buff, by the way. It's pretty handy. That protects you from the bitter end. I really like that a lot. And you definitely, if you're going to play him, there's a certain style of party you're kind of looking for. Like Chris said, you're going to want ways to potentially boost your Int Brave, which there's a lot of. We recently had some characters that didn't have character boards that can boost iBrave. Get character boards like, I don't know, Aerith. That's a really good choice. And paired with other characters who can also reduce Brave damage can make the shields last longer. So characters such as Dash really do help out with Warrior of Light because you're taking greatly reduced Brave damage on top of having that big beefy shield. And I think the other note I want to make before I pass it over to Macnall is that, yes, if you want to play both 9 and Warrior of Light in a party, the shield values, I believe, do stack. So something else to keep in mind. I think they're even counted as 2 different shield buffs. I'm not sure on it though, but that's what I've seen people talking about it. And yes, they do stack. That much I can confirm. Macnall, your turn.
Yeah, I think you covered the main point is the fact that he really relies a lot on his shields lasting. And they are completely based on the initial bravery. If you pair him with a good buffer, it's much stronger. And my friend Scott Ong, he's a really huge fan of Warrior of Light. He's been carrying, or quote-unquote, carrying Warrior of Light through every Chaos fight. And he continues using him on Lufenia. His main drawback he could point to the update to Warrior of Light is the fact that his shield buff, his new LD, taunts every enemy. And sometimes with Warrior of Light, you really prefer to split the enemy's attacks. Because he shields the whole party. It's kind of a waste if you taunt the whole enemy team and they all attack Warrior of Light because his shield will fall faster. Granted, yes, he can reapply his shield, his personal shield with every skill he uses, but if you face fast enemies or hard-hitting enemies, you may be surprised that he won't last so much against repeated attacks.
Yeah, that's a good point. I have a couple more thoughts that I forgot to bring up. One thing, Warrior of Light's hidden speed buff from Shining Wave is not active when he starts the fight. He only gets it after he uses his EX the first time, which means his speed's going to suddenly start to go way up about 3 or 4 turns into the fight. So keep that in mind. He starts slow, then speeds up quickly. Second thing is, even though his class change boost is a very strong artifact passive, if you are using this in a multi-turn Lufenia or Chaos fight, it's not going to be active until the final wave. It only triggers if Warrior of Light starts the final wave at max health. So be careful if you're running that you make sure he is capped off on health before you enter the final wave. With his Guardian Shield buff now, he's less likely to take that HP damage, but it has been a concern in the past that you stack the class change boost, he takes an unlucky HP hit, and then he loses out on those stats going into the final wave. So be careful with that. I think those are the big factors. He's still an amazing tank. He does his job really well. He just has to be careful about where he's taking damage and that he doesn't get his shields broken.
Oh, Chris, I'd like to confirm in chat that thank you so, call me Brian. The shields from 9 and Warrior of Light do stack, and they are considered 2 separate values. So there you go.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that'll be good to know. I don't know how many people will be trying to stack Nine and Warrior of Light together, but that is a possible strategy. Okay, I think that's it for Warrior of Light. Any last thoughts before we move on?
No, that's it.
Okay, we will move on to Thancred then. Thancred has been neglected for a very, very, very long time. I think the last change he got was when he got his EX over a year and a half ago now? About a year and a half ago now. So, with this, he got a rework and his EX realization. His rework did a couple of things. It gave him more ability uses. It gave him some potency increases, I think some buff duration changes, and adjusted, I think, his poison durations. Those were the big changes. And also hit counts. Big thing was hit counts. So Jugulating Wasp now hits a lot more, has a lot more brave hits. Shadowfang now has more brave hits and has splash damage. He has a lot more brave overflow in all his abilities. Shadowfang now applies poison to all targets when used, which is great. And those are the big things. He now has a total of 16 ability uses across Jugulating Wasp and Shadowfang. Jugulating Wasp is now your go-to single target, hit hard, lots of brave overflow, a lot of brave hits. Shadowfang is your deal single target brave damage, deal HP splash damage, reapply your poisons as necessary. His Brave Plus is okay. It does a couple brave hits. His HP Plus reapplies poison. His Brave Plus Ninky has no turn count, reapplies poison, and gives him a free ability use, which allows him to basically maintain high longevity as necessary. In order to trigger Brave Plus Ninky, he needs to have 3 Ninky currently. He can have up to 5 Ninky. You also want to try to have 3 Ninky going into his EX ability because that makes it hit a lot harder. It doubles the number of brave hits he has. His EX ability, when fully realized, is now 2 Brave plus HP attacks that deals 50% HP splash damage. It's 20% on the first HP attack and 50% on the second HP attack, I believe. Yeah. So that's the big thing. Just to note, I forgot to mention, he gets 2 Ninky whenever he uses his base abilities. He gets 1 Ninky whenever he uses his Brave Plus or HP Plus. And he also has an additional ability, 3 uses of his additional ability that deals Brave plus HP hit, applies poison to all targets. And Thancred also gets a free ability use at quest start, so he can start open with Shadowfang, apply poison to all targets when necessary, and Thancred wants to maintain the poison as much as possible because that's how he deals all of his weakness bonus damage. Thancred's pretty simple to play. He just wants to maintain poison, hit targets with poison. He's also very basically greedy. He doesn't provide any bonuses to the party other than apply a poison debuff. It's a nice poison debuff. It's not amazing. But that's it. He hits very hard now. He does a lot of brave shave and brave damage, but that's all he's going to bring to the party. I obviously realized him because I'm a big Thancred fan, and he hits very hard now. He's very strong. You obviously need to bring someone to complement him because all he's going to do is damage. You need to bring some support or some healer or some tank to help him out, but he is your damage dealer. He will do a lot of damage. He can run forever, basically. I think I mentioned this in one of our private chats the other day. I tried the Lufenia blind. I was not prepared to defeat it fast enough, so I ran like 130 turns, and Thancred still had ability uses left. That's how long he can run. Just to be clear on that. Thancred can go forever now if you hasten correctly. Arrow, I think you also realized Thancred. What are your thoughts on him?
I did realize him and purpled him, but I'm going to stress, heads up, this is like the ultimate of luxury characters to purple, because we've had LDs for a while, and you probably got a couple of those LDs that do damage, that thing, and they're going to be Lufania viable. I don't know if Thancred's going to be in that role. But if you have ingots to burn and you want something fun and simple to play, this dude's it. He's pretty fun. He feels so smooth to play now. Now that Nenki is like free action, and then you get that extra turn right away. Because Thancred's problem is, unlike most thiefy dagger types, he's more of an average base speed character. Or I guess he might be fast, but he doesn't have a high turn rate on his skills. That might be more accurate to say. So he's not turn stealing much, if ever. And having that Nenki now not have to be sat, you've used it, and now you got to wait like 3 to 5 turns for him to get another turn or whatever. It's nice. I really appreciate that, and I think that really smoothed out his rotation. But I honestly, it's hard for me to recommend this guy knowing, foresight and all that. And it's not hard to have foresight, even if you were a JP player. But this guy's probably not going to be, overwhelmingly high tier pick. But the poison, it does feel pretty good. The poison debuff he has, it felt a lot weaker before, or maybe I don't know. It just feels like it's a lot better now to use. And I enjoy playing him, but I can't honestly recommend him.
Oh yeah, before I pass over to Macnell, I need to agree with Arrow's assessment. Thancred's definitely a luxury character. I don't think he's going to make it too far into Lithenia. He's definitely one of those characters that feels nice to play with, but he's not like he's not a top tier pick. He's fun. He's definitely fun, but he's not amazing. Okay, Macnell, what are your thoughts on Thancred?
Yeah, I'm gonna give out a very bold, controversial opinion here. I think Thancred is not that strong for this point in time. But yeah, you guys already covered the basics, the most important points about him. But as for me, the big reason I didn't even consider giving him any ingots, despite having had his EX ever since he dropped in Global, is the fact that his poison is not framed. For me, that is unacceptable right now. We already have so many characters fighting for debuff slots, and we have Thancred who lives or dies by having his enemies poisoned, and he can't even apply a framed poison to guarantee it sticks to the targets. It's I can't see myself using him even if I invested on him right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I will agree that Thancred might not be a great investment despite my love for him, and I will not defend my investment and say that other people should follow in my stead or Arrow's stead. I still like him, and I still think he is enjoyable. I don't know how he will hold up outside of Synergy Lufenias. I'll try him. I'll try him going forward. I don't know how long I'll be able to carry him forward, but he is fun to play right now.
Yeah, definitely. I honestly can't highly recommend this guy. He's fun, but when you know what's coming and what's already here, it's just one of those things where it's like, we're sorry, Thancred, you were too late. It's a shame because he is pretty cool. And at least he'll be, I think, a boosted character in a future divine summons. So he will come back to your party at least for one more challenge quest that we know of right now. And he still does not have an LD in Japan. So there will be another chance for him to return at some point in the future, at least one more time. So there you go.
Yeah, definitely. Luckily, Thancred's very easy to build artifacts for if you do decide to invest in him. You just want attack and max brave. He's so simple. So keep that in mind if you did decide to go crazy and just do that. But that's it. Thancred is he is a luxury character. Don't invest in him if you are trying to build for just the tip-top quality characters. Okay, next character, Laguna. And I think we're going to be holding a very similar opinion of Laguna. We'll see. Laguna got a pretty sizable rework, I guess. Mostly it was ability uses. Grenade and Shotgun both got two additional ability uses, bringing him to a total of 16 total ability uses. Grenade, I don't think got too much more, just an increased overflow on it. Yeah, I think it got a few more brave hits. Shotgun got a lot more brave hits and more overflow. Laguna now has a better brave plus. HP plus is now an AoE brave plus single target HP attack. And Ragnarok Buster got a huge change. His EX ability charges a little faster, I believe. It's now an AoE Brave plus single target HP attack that's executed twice, and it now applies framed versions of all of Laguna's debuffs to all targets. So his attack down, defense down, and speed down, he applies framed versions of all those debuffs to all targets when he uses his EX. Another nuance for how Laguna's debuffs work now is that he will refresh the framed versions of his debuffs as long as they are active when he uses his base skills that apply those debuffs. So he does not need to lean on using his EX to refresh those framed debuffs as long as they're present. Obviously, if the framed debuffs are removed for some reason, like the boss has a dispel mechanism, he can reapply the framed debuffs again using his EX and then maintain them with his base skills. But that shouldn't be too much of a problem. Note that Laguna's kind of a weird debuffy character. He brings some small passive auras to the party, but mostly he's just bringing a big max brave up buff to the party and some small passive auras. Especially if you have his World of Illusion weapon, but he's mostly there to apply debuffs and bring damage. That's his primary purpose. He has some small niche supporty roles, but mostly he's there for damage. I don't really have much to say on Laguna beyond that. His debuffs are nice. The attack down is 50%, the defense down is 60%, the speed down is 50%. The speed down, it's a pretty sizable speed down, and the fact that these debuffs are framed means it's harder for the bosses to shove them off. But again, he's another one of those too little too late characters, I think. He's going to probably fall in the same league as Thancred in a lot of ways. If you love him, he'll probably be a luxury character you can work around for a little while, but he probably won't survive too long into these difficult fights of Lufenia. Arrow, what are your thoughts on Laguna?
His debuffs are pretty good, but I don't know if they're going to be enough to want to carry him. That's my worry, is that he's going to be one of those characters we're going to quickly have to carry. And I don't know, man. I've never really been a fan of this kit, and I didn't get his EX at all after doing the free pull and everything, and I just didn't really care. This guy, it's just, I don't know. It's like he's almost like there, but then he never quite gets there to me. Like, I don't know what role they exactly want. I know he's a debuffer, but I never felt like they let him lean far enough on the battery side of himself, like the support side, nor did they ever quite make him like, I don't know, like a damage dealer. He's kind of like this weird jack, and he just doesn't appeal to me, honestly. I've got no other comments. Magnol?
Yeah, I think he feels very outdated by now. His kit feels old because the trend for recent characters, for a long while now, has been to put a lot of their powers, especially for support characters, in the form of auras. And for Laguna, he's, despite debuffing the enemy with granted very strong debuffs, he strengthens the party by using generic buffs. And many other characters have their own self-buffs to replace or to compete with them. So if they already had generic buffs of their own, Laguna is not bringing much for them. And they can be dispelled, they can be replaced with other buffs, better framed buffs from your party. So that's a big part of his kit that can be just thrown to the trash if you bring characters with him that don't really like unframed buffs. And apart from that, his kit has nothing special. It's just Brave Shaving, some HP damage, and buffs and debuffs. In an era where we have so many other more useful gimmicks coming from support characters, he does feel like as I said, he's just there. And it feels like they forgot him and Thancred left them for last, and are just giving them realizations to complete the board and move on.
Yeah, I kind of agree. If Laguna's a favorite, you can definitely invest in him, and you'll be able to get some use out of him, especially in chaos fights. I think he'll be fine for chaos. But now that we have Lufenia fights, he's going to be a harder sell for Lufenia, I think, going forward. And I think that's going to be the big issue. I think that is it for the three characters, though. Any final thoughts on Warrior of Light, Thancred, or Laguna before we move on?
I really wonder if they built these last couple of people just purely with LDs in mind, which is why some of them feel so lazy. I really hope they save some of these guys and don't make them be absolutely last again. But who knows with how development cycles go for this game. So that's going to be my final thoughts.
Yeah, we'll see. And with that, let's see how people's thoughts were on polling for these banners on the podcast polls. There were 2 banners for this story chapter. The first banner included Warrior of Light, LDBT and EX, Thancred EX, and Laguna EX. The second banner was Warrior of Light, LDBT, Ida EX, Agrius EX, and Sync EX. So for the first banner, which was Warrior of Light, Laguna, Thancred, there were 5 people that were willing to pity the BT weapon, 24 willing to pity the LD, 14 that were going to go in on gems, 188 that were going to spend tickets, and 64 planning to skip that banner. For the second banner, which was the Ida Agria Sync banner, there were 4 that were going to pity Warrior of Light LD there, or BT there, sorry. 14 that were going to pity the LD, 2 that were going to spend gems, 81 that were going to spend tickets, and 154 that were going to skip that banner. So that was a pretty good turnout. A lot of people were willing to pity the Warrior of Light LD. A couple were planning to pity the BT on one of these banners. Decent number were planning to spend tickets or gems in some way. And that is it for that. We will move on to now the actual story of this event. So this was ostensibly the finale for this act. The whole thing with being in the world of darkness, we're trying to protect the crystal core of darkness, trying to stop it from shattering and protect basically this world from being destroyed. And I think enough time has passed we can actually talk about spoilers, especially because this story chapter was not that long. Do either of you, Arrow or Macnol, have thoughts on the story? I think Macnol actually said that you skipped the story cutscenes, didn't you?
Yeah, completely. I've got to sit out of this one because it's been a long while since I've read any dialogue in this game.
Arrow, do you have any thoughts on the story?
I'm gonna head off with everybody that was on the last banner appeared in this chapter. So Lilith and Maria got lines. Okay, I'm gonna forgive them finally. And it looks like the other boosted characters for this event all got 1 line. So thank goodness for that, because that just drives me nuts. Don't put somebody as a boosted character on a story event like this and then not let them have at least 1 line. It's kind of an expectation of mine. So thank you for letting Lilith and Maria have, I think they had even a couple of lines. So I'm happy. Secondly, I felt like it was a pretty good finale. I wish it was just a little longer. I was really looking forward to like some sort of weird boss rush thing, and I didn't quite get what I wanted. It was just on stage. It's like it's a one wave kind of fight thing. I thought it would have been more interesting to have had done it like, I don't know, in a bigger setup. That was really my only complaint. Overall, I have some questions, but I guess that's where Interlude will answer some of the things like how Warrior of Light, gave. Am I allowed to do spoilers? Am I allowed to do spoilers? Okay.
For this.
Okay, cool. Because I love the conversation where Warrior of Light just opens up out of nowhere to Onion Knight, and I'm like, oh, that's gonna be a thing, isn't it? So at the end, now the second in command has to take over, and Onion Knight is now like the leader. Since Warrior of Light, he's back over there fighting Garland or whatever at the end. I was like, okay, that's cool. But I think we were talking, and we weren't, and some of the others, we were all talking. I was still kind of confused if there was a memory, a memory loss thing again or not. I don't think there was. I didn't get that feeling, but some people said otherwise, so I don't know.
But I really enjoyed the chapter. There's a lot of fun little bits. I think there's going to be something for any Final Fantasy fan to enjoy here. So good ending, good enough. It does what it needs to.
My understanding from what I got out of those post fight with Shinryu cutscenes was that there was no memory loss. Everyone was just split up again afterwards, where they remembered what had happened, but they were confused on which memories they still had retained or which memories had come back to them afterwards. So there were questions on what memories they might have gotten back after the crystal core had shattered, because remember that Kefka had been feeding memories to Shinryu, I think, was what was going on. He'd been using their radiance to empower Shinryu to make it stronger. I think that was a big thing. And thanks, Respoina, for the sub. That was a big factor in what was going on and why Shinryu was so strong, I think, in this chapter. Forgive me if I'm mistaken there, Arrow.
Yeah, GRW is mentioning that why Warrior of Light started talking a bit more, at least to Onion, is that he might have remembered the past cycle. It looks like he might have remembered the past cycles of the PSP, Dissidia, and NT, which is very possible, I think, because he did mention to Onion Knight they had fought together before, and Onion Knight's like, what are you talking about, man? I don't know what the heck you're talking about. And even Cloud of Darkness seems to have hinted something to Onion that, oh, you fought me before, but you were a coward and ran away and wouldn't fight me. Like, you wouldn't finish the job, basically. I was like, okay, that's interesting. So I'm sure this is probably what's going to lead into the next story chapter, which will be the FF3 chapter. So that's going to be interesting. But I'm really not sure if Shinryu was being fed memories by Kefka. Sorry, I went on a tangent there. But I honestly don't know. I don't remember too well. I might have to go back through the Memoria Theater and go through the whole all the arcs and chapters, because I think that'd be a really fun thing for me to do. Since I overall do enjoy the story of this game, even if it's fan servicey as all get out. But I mean, what else am I going to expect from something like this?
Yeah, that's fair. I'm just glad the story chapter was relatively brief this time, because I didn't want, especially once I realized that the raid event was locked behind completing the story chapter. I was glad that it wasn't too long, because I didn't want to have to waste time grinding my way through it to unlock the raid. So that I appreciated that, definitely. I think that we'll probably let Mark touch on the story again next week to see if he has any thoughts on it. But for now, we'll move on to the raid event, which again, since we're back to no longer having to deal with a chaos raid fight, I think people have been appreciating how much more peaceful this event is instead, and how it's not taking as long to get through it. I think I'm almost done with it. I have a few more runs to do, and I will have cleared out my personal rewards. Arrow Magnol, are you in a similar boat, or do you have a little further to go?
I have all the base rewards done, the 2 million points. I'm just now working on the extra 2 million for those 5-star orbs, because I love those. I will get them, sometime this weekend probably.
Yeah, same. I got the 2 million rewards very early, and I even went back to Struggles event to farm a little more, since we need more fodder to use with our new delicious artifact revamp system.
Gotcha. I'm almost at the 4 million rewards, so I've been having fun. I think for the raid event, Warrior of Light by far is the safest pick, just to make it easy. I've been running Thancred anyways. Mito said that in chat he's been running Sync for it. I've seen a lot of Syncs. I've seen a couple Agriuses. I've run Agrius a couple times, but Warrior of Light by far has been the most popular pick. I don't think I've seen any Lagunas, believe it or not. So Laguna has been the least popular one I've seen personally when I've been running the raid. But I think if you're using a boosted character, there's no terrible choices for this raid event, necessarily.
Yeah, they're all pretty good. And I've seen a few Idas. She's really good there. She speeds up the fight. But like you said earlier, talking about Warrior of Light, he's really newbie friendly. It's hard to play him wrong. So it's been a very safe co-op to go.
Oh yeah, definitely. even if you play Warrior of Light wrong, it's, as you said, it's hard to play Warrior of Light wrong. So yeah, there isn't much to say about that. Just take your time. If you can, go break a boosted character into the Cosmos event room. That makes it so you have to do fewer fights. It's a lot faster that way. One thing I did notice is that with the new artifact rewards, you burn through your materials a lot faster if you're trying to fuse the Idoja artifacts, so be careful what you're fusing to complete them. I just went and spent some of my basic tokens to get artifact fodder after I realized what was going on. So just an aside for that. And with that, we can move on to talking brief. We're going to only do this very briefly, the Chaos and Challenge Quest discussion. Macnell, you didn't write a boss guide for the Chaos Quest, right? This time, or the Challenge Quest?
No, the challenge quest is still covered in the main boss guide for Lufenia. I have a small section at the end for challenge quests, but the chaos stage itself it may be slightly challenging for newer players or someone still building their roster, but any veteran should not have any trouble finishing chaos stages now. This one, even as the challenge quest was fairly easy, if you had Warrior of Light with or without his LD, even at EX plus 0, he was a very strong choice. He could pretty much carry any other two decently geared characters. The only thing you might find difficult in this fight is if you don't have a good damage dealer, because some of those characters, like Agres, are not especially damaging. You might have a little trouble finishing it in few turns, but even then, I could carry an EX plus 0 Thancred just fine. It's a very easy fight, just the mannequins have way too much HP.
Yeah, I noticed my strategy going in was to deal with Garnet first because I didn't like the fact she could go from 0 Brave to Brave plus HP attack, and I wanted to get that gone first. But if you just watch their Brave, don't let them build up too much, you should be safe. None of them are particularly dangerous. And if you have Warrior of Light with LD, he makes it a lot safer in most cases. You just need to make sure you bring enough damage to get through it in the allotted turns if you bring Warrior of Light. I think that's it for the challenge quest. Arrow, do you have any additional things to point out for the challenge quest here? Again, I don't want to spend too much time on it because it's no longer the max thing.
Oh yeah. No, it's no biggie. Yeah, even if you don't have Warrior of Light, this should be pretty doable because I mean they have like what Agrius and Laguna were the other options on some auras. So at least Laguna should work with the minimal realization, and you got all these other guys that are pretty decent damage dealers. I didn't have any problems. I used Warrior of Light, Sync, and Thancred, and I didn't even really think when I did it. So yeah. I don't know. There's not much to say. It's just a damage sponge mannequin fight. You've probably done a bunch of these before, so you should be all right. It's probably up there as one of the easiest challenge quests we've had.
Okay, and with that, we will switch to what is now the highest difficulty here, which is Lufenia. So this Lufenia, I'm guessing, is going to be considered a sampler of what is to come. Macnell, do you want to go through this fight and what it entailed?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, what a breath of fresh air. I'm really happy with Lufenia so far. Of course, it's been just one battle. I haven't fought HaateXIII yet. But it's so interesting. I'm really sad that we have seen, we talked among ourselves, that we have seen some people complaining on the internet that it was just such an easy fight. Come on, Lufenia is so easy, etc., etc. Because they trampled it with Warrior of Light, who is boosted, who is the feature burst and LD character, and for whom the fight is especially tailored with, because he can nullify the boss brave gains, he can nullify HP damage, and if you bring a fully geared Warrior of Light with his LD, you can really just close your eyes, press buttons at random, and finish the fight anyway. But if you don't want to just abuse the boosted characters, and instead you try to bring an interesting team and pay attention to the fight, this is a well-built fight. It's interesting, it has unique mechanics, and it's a very good start to Lufenia, in my opinion. Because while it's decidedly more involved and more complex than past Chaos fights, it's just at the right difficulty that you can complete it with several different teams without feeling the need to pull for a boosted character. That's just the sweet spot, in my opinion. So, to cover the mechanics of the fight, it's a two-wave fight with just one enemy per wave, which is technically the same enemy. It's Shinryu, the boss of the story stage. And this fight has very different mechanics between each wave. The first wave has the boss has a recast ability that when loaded or when unleashed on your party removes all of your characters' non-framed buffs, causes a magic attack, bravery, and HP attack on everybody, and after the attack it gives bravery to the boss, and also very importantly it gives the boss a red aura that causes an effect on the field that completely disables healing for your team for 2 turns, for 2 of the boss turns. So that's the main thing you need to pay attention for in this first wave, is that first, the wave has a decent amount of HP, the boss has 2 million HP, and you can expect to take up to maybe 30 or even 40 turns clearing it, depending on your team, and if you bring heavy damage dealers or not. But it's not really a very dangerous fight. The first wave can be dealt with very easily. But if you have a character who needs to have full HP at the start of the last wave, like for instance, Warrior of Light, to trigger some of his passives, you should really pay attention to not be damaged by his recast ability right at the end of the first wave. Otherwise, you will have no chance to heal. You might have to waste a few turns waiting for the red aura to end before you can heal and finish the first wave safely. Once you're past the first wave, we come to the more interesting part of the fight, which is the second wave with the Dark Shinryu, which is much bigger, much scarier, and finally brings us the famed Lufenia Orb, which adds another layer of complication to the wave, but if you know what you're doing and you understand what it does, it becomes actually rather easy to deal with. First I'll talk about the orb, and then I'll talk about the boss abilities and how to deal with him. The orb itself, it's something we have to be familiar with because it's gonna be the staple of every Lufenia fight from now on. It's not immediately active on the field, it will just enter the play when a certain condition is filled. For this fight, the orb will only enter the play when the boss uses his recast ability for the first time. When that happens, the orb will appear besides the buff slots of the boss, and the orb can be either active or inactive. When it's active, it starts with a counter on it. For this boss, it starts with a counter of 5. And for every action the boss takes while the orb is active, it will decrease by 2. For every action your characters take while it's active, it will decrease by 1. What defines if the orb is active or not is again something that will be different for every fight. For this boss, the orb is only active whenever the boss has at least acquired 25% of his max bravery. If you don't debuff the max bravery of Shinryu, it's at 60,000. So the orb will always be active if the boss starts the turn with 15,000 bravery. And it will only decrease at the end of the turn. So if, for instance, the boss starts the turn with 15k or more bravery, but you shave it down with your attack, it will not decrease when you end your turn. With that said, once you know how to control the orb, in this case you need to keep the boss bravery low, so you always shave or keep it broken, or use poison or sap or gravity attacks to remove their bravery. Whenever it's if you fail to control it and you let it count down to 0, the boss will unleash a very strong attack called Trinity Plus, which deals magic bravery of thunder, ice, and fire element, 3 hits on all your team, then deals HP damage to all your team, and grants the boss 2 very strong buffs of bravery regen and HP regen. And the worst part of this attack is that before dealing damage, it will remove all of your party buffs, and it will clean the boss debuffs. The bad part of this attack removing your party buffs is that if you rely on somebody like, let's say, Bash, who needs to have a buff active to have Last Stand, to have this protection active, the attack will simply remove that and hit him and possibly kill him anyway. It's not as dangerous as certain other Lufenia orbs that are coming in our future, but it's a good way to teach everybody that you don't want to let the Lufenia orb count down to 0. Consider it a training. You can survive this orb for sure. There are several ways to survive it, but it's a way to learn that you don't want to have to deal with it. Because even if you survive its attack, you have the risk of the boss having its recast field and unleashing the recast on you and killing your party in the next attack. So take it as an opportunity to learn how to deal with orbs. Now for the boss itself, the main attack to watch out for in this boss is his recast ability, which fills in about 4 or 5 of his attacks, and it feels quicker if he inflicts a break on you. It's a Brave Gain followed by a magical attack on all your team with an HP attack, and it locks out your summon ability for 2 turns. And whenever the boss uses this attack, if the Lufenia orb was not in play, it will become active, it will come into play, and if the Lufenia orb was already in play, it will disappear until it uses the recast again. Apart from that, the boss doesn't have too many very dangerous attacks. The hard part of this fight is actually being able to damage the boss because of his auras. And the auras are also a rather complex part of the fight, but if you know how they work, it's very easy to deal with them. The boss starts with no aura. When you first hit it, when you first take any action on the second wave, it will enter the yellow aura, which makes the boss completely immune to knockback, launches, and to any kind of delay, be it from breaks or from abilities that cause delay. Every time the boss acts, the aura changes. So it starts at yellow, then after he acts for the first time, it will go to purple, which is an aura that disables any kind of healing a bravery recover on your party. The healing is self-explanatory, you will be unable to heal from any skill or buff. But the really bad part of the purple aura is that it cuts bravery recovery or bravery fund from any of your skills. And you may not have realized it so far, but so many of your current characters really rely on bravery recovery and bravery fund to deal damage. So it's very noticeable. When you go to purple aura, you can see many characters who diminish heavily the way they can contribute to the team. In the next aura after the purple is the green aura, where the boss hits become guaranteed. That means you can't evade They can't be blinded or any other way to stop it from hitting you. And the boss will heal some HP based on how much bravery damage he deals on you. This is a very harmless aura. This is the perfect opportunity to attack the boss and use your best skills is when he's at the green aura. Lastly, after the green aura, if the boss takes another turn, he moves to the blue aura, where the boss becomes completely immune to damage from direct brave hits. You can still shave brave using poison, gravity attacks, tap, or other abilities that reduce bravery without direct hits, but it's very hard to deal with this phase if you let the boss enter the blue aura phase with a high amount of bravery. So the only thing you have to keep in mind on the green aura is that you should avoid being broken by the boss attack while he's green, because after the attack he'll turn blue and you cannot shave the bravery he gained. With all that said, there is still one more complication, that while the boss will follow this same pattern, always going from yellow to purple to green to blue, and repeating after blue, when the boss hits 84% of his HP, it will immediately trigger Intimidation, which is a stats aura change, which is accompanied by a debuff caused on all of your team that reduces their attack, defense, initial bravery, and max bravery for 3 turns. And more importantly, it resets the sequence back to the yellow aura. So if the boss was already at the yellow aura when you make him go to 84% HP, you will not notice anything because nothing will change for you. But if he was in any other aura, he will immediately change back to yellow aura and start over the sequence. The same thing will happen again when the boss hits 69% HP. So with all that said, the most important thing you need to know to deal with this boss is that you should always try to front load your damage to make sure you deal as much damage as possible at the start of the fight before he hits 69% HP, because that way you can extend the best part of the attack, that is when you have him at green aura, and you want that to happen before the boss has an orb active. Because there is one other problem with the orb that I didn't mention before, that when the orb is active and is appearing on the field, the boss gets a big increase to his defense and speed. So it's very hard to deal damage while the orb is in play. When the orb appears, you actually want to let the boss act. You don't want to break him or delay him in any way. You want to let him take actions, because otherwise the worst part of the fight will extend for longer. If you try to manipulate the auras and line a good green aura without the orb, you have to do it after the boss is under 69% HP, because if not, if you try to summon during a green aura before that, the boss will immediately change to yellow aura while you're hitting him, and it may complicate your plans, especially if you have a delay character in your team, because they will be unable to delay the boss. Once you know how to deal with the auras, you can really complete this fight with many other teams that don't require Warrior of Light. If you do bring Warrior of Light, you have a much easier time, because the Warrior of Light can deal with every aura from the boss, because he doesn't rely on delays, so yellow aura doesn't affect him as much. For the purple aura, he can deal good damage with direct hits from his shield. The blue aura that stops you from dealing damage with direct hits, you can just use shield, his skill 1, and battery your whole team, and everybody can still deal damage. So the main hurdle in this fight is being able to deal damage to the boss despite his blue and purple auras, and despite the big defense spike from the orb. If you can bring a team to account for that, it becomes a very interesting fight, and you can tackle it with very creative teams, like the folks who are tackling the current TCC Challenge are showing, we have very different team compositions being able to deal with it, even without any boosted characters. And if you think I haven't spoken enough and I haven't been too thorough covering this fight, you can always read a full walkthrough of the fight on DissidiaFFOO.com with even more information, believe it or not.
And there's a link to that guide in chat right now. Thank you, Macnell, for giving us that extremely detailed discussion of the fight for us. I have only done one attempt of the Lufenia fight, and I only got a clear of it so far. I actually need to go back and attempt it again with a different team to get the complete, because I did not understand all the mechanics for how the Lufenia orb worked, so I extended that thing a little too long. Can people not hear me?
Yeah, I see Ragnamune and Five Deeps, I think, are having some issues.
Okay, I broke my mic then. Give me a sec. Arrow, you talk while I try to fix it. Chat, let me know if you can hear me again.
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to give a quick breakdown of some of the best teams that kind of like win this, like the strategy thing you might want to consider differently from Magnol, because he was very thorough. I'm not like that. I can't be that succulent. What is it? The word I'm looking for? Like that precise, I guess. So one strategy that's been very popular is to just stack a bunch of speed downs and basically bombard the boss to the point where he doesn't really get any turns. So once you've gotten under that 69%, you get to that green aura, you just go ham. And hopefully you will beat him before he really gets any turns. So characters that do that strategy very well obviously include things like Garland, Kistis. I think I saw one team with ulti. So, anyone that can basically keep getting turns back to back. And on top of that, lower the speed of the enemies greatly will help you with that strategy. Another way to do it is just go all in with some damage and basically mitigate the charge skill. So stuff like that. That strategy is more standard. You can use then in those cases things like Machina, Arden. I'm trying to think of some of the other big damage dealers for this fight that I've seen.
Noctis.
Noctis, thank you. And of course, then using Amidatelli and friends for a lot of these runs have helped. Another strategy that I think I'm missing one of the strategies, Magnol. I know there's the delay strategy, just the tank strategy, and then I feel like there's one more, but I'm missing it right now. But one of those two will definitely help you get through the fight. So the other thing is, if you are trying to do the TCC challenge, there are some very good friend units that have not been banned that are not Noctis and Amidatellian. So you could potentially pick somebody like Eldmarsh. Edward is a very good pick if you happen to have a friend Edward. Realm can be okay. I think some people, you could probably use a Strago friend because he will break the enemy and then re-break them, depending on the Ori, of course. And he doesn't really rely on Brave gains too much, so you can pretty much summon him on Purple Aura if you need to. So that would be my considerations. I feel like I'm missing a couple things for characters, but maybe Magnol, are there any other characters you felt like really shined in this event that can really help people bust through it that I might have missed, and maybe give some reasons why so we can pass some more time while Kreese fixes his mic?
How
Yeah,
about
for
now?
sure.
Can everyone hear me okay now in chat? Yes, chat?
Yeah. Chat, do you hear? Yes, I think they
I
say
fixed it. I figured out it was feeding through and from some. Yeah, sorry. It was feeding through the wrong audio device, which is the reason I sounded different. Apologies. So for 1 hour of the recording, it was feeding through the wrong audio device. I figured out the problem. I had to set it so it wasn't doing the default.
All right. Arrow, you already covered some very, very strong units like Noctis. Noctis is the main way to cheese this fight because if you bring Noctis in your team, you can extend the first turn of the fight for a very long time because he does not rely on delay. So he doesn't care at all about the yellow aura. You can just use his LDs, use his burst if you have it, and deal a very, very large amount of damage before the boss can even act once. So that makes it much easier. Another big strategy is, like I said, using a mid-Italian friend. You bring a mid-Italian, you get the good green aura without an orb. You use your summon, you use a mid-Italian to delete turns, you can deal damage for a long time without any repercussion. And the other big unit who chooses this is Eldnarch. If you bring Eldnarch, you can lock down the boss on the second wave, go to town with your other characters, and not have to worry about anything because the aura won't change. And again, Eldnarch does not care at all about the yellow aura. He doesn't need to delay. He'll just keep the boss from acting.
Okay, so since people in chat didn't hear me talking about this, my experiences with this fight, I guess I'll repeat myself. I've only done this fight once. I did it blind, so I didn't really understand all the mechanics of the fight. And so I did get a clear, I did not get a complete yet. I brought a full synergy team myself. I brought Thancred, Agrius, and Warrior of Light. It was very safe. It was very slow. And I ended up delaying the boss while its Lufenia orb was up several times because Thancred wasn't doing a lot of damage while the orb was up. He was doing enough damage to break the boss. So I wasted a lot of turns. Let's put it that way. And that ended up getting me a clear, I think, on like 125, 130 turns into it. So I have to go back, refine my strategy, and get it done. I understand better now what's going on, though, so I should be able to get it done. As I said, I have the team, I just didn't figure out what I was doing the first time. And again, now that everyone's listened to Macnell explain it, hopefully you all can figure this out too if you have the team, if you have the party members to do it. Along with that, Macnell and the fine folks at TCC, not me, I had technical issues that kept me from working on the TCC challenge this past week, but they were able to get a TCC challenge together for this Lufenia. So we have a TCC challenge and an extreme challenge. Sadly, I was not able to get slides together to show this off, so I'll just have to say them out loud. However, if you go to DissidiaFFOO, you can see the slides, or you can go to Macnell's Twitter feed where he also shares them. I posted the link in Twitch for you to see them. The base TCC challenge is that the boosted characters, Warrior of Light, Laguna, Agrius, Ida, Thancred, and Sync are all banned. You cannot use any burst modes. And along with that, other characters that are banned are Amiditelian, Bosch, and Noctis. These bans also apply to friend units. So that's the base TCC challenge. The extreme version of this challenge is that you cannot use any friend units, you must bring either Chocobo or Mog Summon, and you must defeat Shinryu while the Lufenia orb is not in play. So to be clear, the special gimmick of this is that you cannot defeat Shinryu while the Lufenia orb is active. You must wait until the Lufenia orb goes away before you can finish off Shinryu. That is the special gimmick. So, if you want to try that, again, follow the link that I posted in Twitch chat or go to DissidiaInfo.com and find the TCC challenge, and you can try it out for yourself. If you're a masochist. Otherwise, you don't have to do it. But have some fun.
Yeah, if you're not a masochist, you can try the regular version of the challenge, and you can join the more than one person who already said today in our Discord that doing the challenge made them appreciate the fight a lot more and have a lot more fun because they actually got to see the fight mechanics and have to learn to deal with them, which is, in my humble opinion, much more interesting than just trampling it with a boosted character.
Definitely. And we already have a bunch of people who have submitted runs for both the extreme and the regular versions of the challenge, but we are going to wait until later, probably over the weekend. Mark will post winners and we will announce them next week on the podcast. And so with that, we will move on to the last thing we are going to discuss, though it's going to be brief. As we began recording, a new lost chapter was released. 8's lost chapter, The Power of Tranquility. Because this lost chapter just dropped, we are not going to talk about the Chaos Challenge Quest or Lufenia this week. We will discuss it next week when Mark's back. However, we will talk a little bit about 8 and what he got tonight. 8 got an LD. That's it. He just got an LD. His base kit did not change. He already had his EX realization from his original event release. He did not get any tweaks to his base kit. The only thing he got was that he got his LD. So what did his LD give him? Well, it gave him the LD ability Explosive Fist. He gets 4 uses of it, and it's an AoE Brave plus HP attack that does split damage, and it gives him some Brave regain after he does the HP attack. It gives him a new buff. It applies the lock debuff to all targets, and it gives him a new thing, gives him a new counter rush stance. So I'll go through these in order. The new buff, Defense, gives him a small attack bonus, gives him Brave gain after every HP attack he does, with the exception of after he uses LD ability or during chain attacks. And it also gives him a bonus duration to all self-granted buffs. It also allows him to get Last Stand, basically, and it allows him to trigger Counter Rush while defense is active. He applies Lock, which means that he's now being targeted by all enemies, and Counter Rush is what he gets. Counter Rush triggers whenever he takes Brave damage or whenever he evades an enemy attack, and it is a single target Brave plus HP attack that deals splash damage and ignores enemy defense. So remember that the way 8 used to work is that he used to be a kind of evadey character. After using his EX ability, he would get 2 turns of a buff called Phantom Rush. While Phantom Rush was active, he could trigger something called Break Sight Blow, which would be a single target Brave plus HP attack that ignored defense. Now, with his LD ability, he can actually draw targets to him with the lock, and he can now trigger counterattacks even if he takes Brave damage, so he does not need to evade anymore to do it. So a couple of things. This means that he can potentially trigger 2 counters, because he can trigger Counter Rush and Break Sight Blow if he has Phantom Rush and Defense active. I believe. If I'm mistaken, let me know. I believe that's how that behavior works. He can do a lot of counterattacks. This also means that he's going to be one of Mino's least favorite characters because he's now a true enemy phase character. He now is able to do a lot more counterattacks, where this used to be a more minor portion of his kit because he could not maintain Phantom Rush indefinitely. He can maintain defense a lot more easily. He can't maintain it indefinitely. I think I'd have to experiment a little bit more with him to know for certain, but he can maintain it for a decent amount of time. He gets 6 turns of it and 4 uses of Explosive Fist, so he can maintain it for 26 turns. With some tweaks here and there, thanks to his additional ability, extending active buffs, light speed jab, extending active buffs, and that sort of thing. So that's what 8 gets. It's a small tweak. It changes the way he plays quite substantially, because now he's countering. He actually does a lot more counters, where that used to be a smaller piece of his kit. It's now a bigger emphasis on how he behaves. So keep that in mind in how you want to use him now. Otherwise, he's still the same old 8. He does a lot of punchy stuff. He does a lot of hits. Just keep in mind, because of his Last Stand buff, he does take increased Brave and HP damage from attacks if he does not evading attacks, so be careful of that. Also remember that there have historically been bosses in the past that ignore evasion, so watch out for that. And I think that's it for 8's base kit. Arrow, what are your thoughts on 8?
Okay, I gotta point out, those counters, he's got 2 of them now. It was already bad enough when he had 1. He would lengthen the videos that I would watch with him a ton. So if you're a content creator, my God, please, like tell people the times, like just up the speed of your videos, because he is going to eat a lot of time. So those animations are slow. I don't like, and he's going to do them a lot. So you got to be prepared for that. I personally am not a huge fan of this kit. I whatever was the first time around. I am not the second time, but caveat. When he works, like he can completely cheese content when he works. And I think people back in the day on JP actually soloed his own Lufania with him on his own. So just kind of giving you an idea. And in fights where like the AI wants to target people with a certain stat set, like, oh, I'm going to target the guy with the lowest brave, or I'm going to target the guy with the lowest HP all the time, you can set up for that to have 8 be the one that's always targeted. So depending on the boss AI and the boss itself, 8, when he works, really works, but he's just not for me. But if he is for you, definitely go for it. I think you will not be unhappy, and he will pair very well with another couple of counter characters we will be getting very shortly in Gladio and Gal.
Macnol, do you have any thoughts on 8?
Yeah, what I'm wondering here, I'm not really worried about his longevity in terms of keeping his buff up, because like I said, he can naturally keep it for almost 30 turns. He has his AA and his skills to extend it. What I'm actually kind of worried about is how long he can keep his taunt up, because he has limited use of his LD and it lasts for only 5 turns. So it may be the case that you want to use him mostly in fights where the enemies use many all attacks, because if you just trust his luck to draw attacks to him, single target attacks, he might not counter as much as you hope him to.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. It is true, especially against faster bosses, that he will burn through those pretty fast, and you got to be careful of that. Definitely. Something to keep in mind.
You might probably want to pair him with good speed down debuffers or delayers to make the enemies take fewer actions and make his debuff last longer. And one important point to note is that since his base kit was not reworked and he only got his LD, his counterattacks still have very, very low potency. So you really want to have strong attack buffers or enchanters in the party to make his attack hit harder. Otherwise, you're gonna have to watch that very long counter animation deal very low damage to your enemies.
And keep in mind that because the low potencies, while they ignore defense, they will still be affected by the brave damage reduction that bosses get as their auras go up during the fight. So keep that in mind. He will still be feeling that impacting him. That will be a factor. I believe in Japan, he saw some use for a little while, but I don't know how long that lasted. Do you remember Macnol or Arrow, how much longevity he saw into Lufenia era?
I don't know offhand, but I know he does pop up every now and then. I think in videos even to many months out. But again, it's gonna depend on the boss fight, honestly, when it comes to that. Because again, when he cheeses, he cheeses. That's pretty much the answer I got. But I can't remember any specific fights. Maybe we can ask BC for clarification later on that, because I know he's mentioned it before.
Yeah, that's a point where I would consult BC, because I personally never watch anything from JP. So I don't know how long he's going to be useful. But I hope he has a good time to shine, because I do like his kit. I think he's interesting. He's fun to use. And as long as he doesn't have to deal with a guaranteed hit, he's going to be nice.
Yeah, definitely. Again, he has quirks that are going to make him not perfect for everything. If you have a boss that ignores evasion, you probably don't want to bring 8. So be careful with that. If you have bosses that enrage upon lock, you do not want to bring 8, that sort of thing. So he's not a perfect character. He's going to be a niche fill. When he works, but you got to watch out for those traps or those bosses that are traps that are designed to ruin characters like HaateXIII. Okay, so let's move on. For the polls, there are 10 servers that currently have the poll up, and on those 10 servers, no one is planning to pity Warrior of Light's BT on this banner. 7 people say they are going to pity 8's LD. 7 people say they're going to spend gems on the banner. 70 people are going to spend tickets, and 64 say they're going to skip the banner. Those numbers will probably go up because I don't think main court has this poll up yet. But those are pretty good numbers. A lot of people are still interested in 8 to some degree to spend some time polling on it. So that's pretty good. We have some time for questions. I don't think we're going to go too late. We'll move into the post-show a little earlier than usual. So let's see if there's any questions we want to cover. I do not remember where we left off. Arrow, since I got cut off kind of abruptly last week, did you all do any more questions before you moved on to the post-show last week?
I don't think we did any. We answered the one we were on, and then we moved because we didn't want to answer more questions when you weren't there. And I think we just moved into post-show at that point.
Okay, let's see. I'll pick out a couple questions. I haven't had a chance to look at questions today because I've been busy. Moo asks, do you guys feel like the game is becoming increasingly less free-to-play friendly over time, especially for the free-to-play players who want to complete all content? The Mag Pass is becoming more and more powerful since they fast-tracked the guaranteed orange artifact passive perk. They introduced reset stones. Pities in this era are much more expensive. Powerful LD boards eating up more character board points with no additional income. The long divine summon board grinds. Some of this is talking about stuff in Japan only still, like the LD boards and the divine summon board grinds. And also some of this stuff is locked behind a $5 paywall. I'll go first. The game is a little less free-to-play friendly in the aspect that some stuff is locked behind a $5 paywall now with the cheap Mog passes. So it does suck in that way. The extra some character board points, the idojas now do require spending a little bit of money on the game. So if you are absolutely against spending any money on the game, that definitely sucks for you. And I agree, it hurts. If you are if you're in that boat where you cannot spend any money, it hurts. But I also believe that there are still free to play players that are able to complete all content because those tend to be things that are more quote unquote, and I hate this, I really don't like it. And this is not something I want to say, but they tend to be more time savery things or things that are more bonuses more than things that you need to complete everything. Like, I've been buying the Mog passes every month, and I have more character points than I can spend right now. Like if I had not been buying Mog passes every month, I would not be empty on character points is a good way to put it. The artifact system change has not been implemented long enough for me to see that impacting my artifact grinding process. So I can't say how much that's going to change, and LD boards are not here for me to say how much that will change things. I have not been buying gems recently, so the small amount of gems I get from the Mog Pass, because I get the cheap Mog Pass, hasn't really changed my gem income. I've been free to play as far as gem investment goes for the last 6 to 8 months now, I guess. I don't remember the last costume I bought. I think it was the Tifa costume. So I've been more or less playing free to play with the exception of the cheap Mog Pass for a while. So I don't think the game. The game's become definitely a little less free to play friendly. It hasn't become so grossly not free to play friendly that I feel turned off from it. Is the best way to say it in my opinion. So that's where I will put it in my opinion, I guess. Arrow, what are your thoughts?
Okay, so with the artifact passive thing, that's nice. But as somebody who never really went out of their way to get perfect, just good enoughs, it's nice now that it's much easier and more casual for me to get the stuff. But once I still probably get what I want, which is a 108 attacks or a 330, whatever the primary stat is of that character, along with okay secondaries maybe. I don't even really care most of the time. As long as I get the primaries, I'm good to go. And honestly, I've read things where some people didn't even farm artifacts and was still clearing Lufenia content and stuff. So I don't know. Artifacts are kind of overblown. I feel like just get good enough and move on. So that I feel like as a free to play, that shouldn't hurt you. It's more of like it might take you more time to get that primary though, compared to maybe somebody who has double orange rolls. The gems you get from the $5 pass really, I mean, that's, I think it's like what, like 1,000.
It's less. It's like 500, 600 gems.
Yeah, no. And I don't really care about that. But what I do it for is summon grind. And I do like extra character board points because I like collecting things. And I like collecting character boards. And I like spending my character board points willy-nilly. Like today, I just got King's character boards. And I don't even feel bad about it. Thank goodness for $5 Mog Pass to do that for me. I totally understand, though, if you can't spend money on this game. And I understand that some of these things that they're creating, they're trying to just make money off of it, but a lot of it is just still convenience things. They just save you time maybe, or they can save you from mistakes in the case of those little sphere removal orbs, I guess. But I know we all got 3 for free, and I still don't know. I've only used like maybe 6 orbs total, just to give you an idea like how few spheres I've used. So 6 spheres total. I don't know. I'm not feeling the problem. I guess just if you're a free-to-play player, it's always been the same thing. You have to be very careful with your gems. You have to decide what's most important for you to get. You have to think a little bit more than, like, say, somebody who can whale, obviously, because the whale's going to have everything. But if you're playing and you don't put a lot of money into the game or you put none, you're just going to have to live without certain things. That's just how the nature of gacha games, honestly. And I know that may not be appealing to hear as an answer, but that's just the nature of these games. So Magna, I'll pass it off to you.
Boy, am I glad you tackled this question when I'm on the show, because everybody knows I'm a staunch defender of free-to-play players. I am extremely against predatory tactics. I never want to see Square Enix trying to milk money from players and abusing them. And I think the Mog Pass is absolutely fine. I don't think it's a problem at all. Come on, the benefits are minor at best. They're not in any way anything that you should feel pressured to have. I bought the Mog Pass twice already. Obviously the least expensive one, not the Whale Pass, the Mogul Pass. And it barely made any difference. I'd already farmed every summon board for all of my characters way before the quality of life increases. That came for free, that you don't even need to have the Mog Pass to use. So no, it's not required, it's not a huge advantage to farm summon boards. It's a nice quality of life, it lets you get a new character up to speed in half an hour. But face it, we have new characters once or twice a month at best. So it's minor, it's just something that occasionally will save you 15 minutes in your life. The gems are so few, it's kind of a joke to even count them. And the other benefits, like for instance, the charboard points. Okay, you get extra points, it's nice, it's very enticing, but you don't need them. I have 100,000 points sitting in my bank because I fully board every new character I pull for or I ingot. I'm pulling for a lot of characters these past couple months. And I still have 100 more points than I could use. So only half of that comes from the Mog Pass. The other half is free points. You really shouldn't feel pressured to buy the Mog Pass. I encourage everybody to buy it because it supports the game. It's a nice gesture, but it's not a big pay-to-win advantage. Nothing coming even close to comparing to other gachas out there, which I'm not gonna name. Genshin Impact.
Yeah, I think we're all in general agreement. The Mog Pass is fine. And in general, we don't think this game's terrible for free-to-play players right now. We'll see how things change in the future. Roguisin asks, this is a question more for the future, and I think we already have some answers for this, so this will be a quick question. Hey guys, new to Discord, assuming this is where I post questions. Seeing how the anniversary for Global is coming up, what are the hosts looking forward to from this anniversary? What do you think they will do to mix it up this year to give us something more or something different than just a global first character? Well, we found out on the last community stream that we are not getting a global first character this time. Instead, we are getting a global first LD weapon. So we do have a rough idea of one thing that will be in the third anniversary. We are getting another global first LD weapon. That is correct, right? Because I missed that that live stream.
It is a global first LD that will be coming, yes.
So we know it'll be a global first LD instead of another global first character. What that global first LD will be, and what else will be part of it, who knows? I suspect we'll also get more Abyss with the anniversary, and how exactly they'll mix it up, what else exactly they'll apply. I'm not sure, but I suspect it'll be some sort of themed Abyss to fit with the LD like they did with VV. That'd be my suspicion. Arrow, do you have any other thoughts?
I definitely think there will be an Abyss to go with the LD character. I keep screaming it, justice for Rydia. So I'm going to go with that being my bets for the early LD, because she meets the criteria, I feel, for it, because they like picking waifus, guys. They're going to pick somebody that's a girl because that's what they've done the past 2 anniversaries. So you better start going with those girl characters and digging through. And it can't be Ash because she just got it. So over in JP. So pick somebody else. Anyway, what about you, Magnol?
I'm sorry, what was the question? I was talking to people in chat.
What do you think is coming? Do you have any hypothesis for what we're going to get for the global third anniversary?
No, I haven't thought about this specific character. I just really hope they follow the same trend that they applied to Vivi, and they pick some character who is was forgotten in Japan, and took too long to receive an upgrade, and they bring it up to an earlier powerful status in Global.
Okay. We'll answer 1 or 2 more quick questions, and then we'll call it for tonight. Sipes asks, Japan's OP reports, whatever they're called, seem to give out 6,000 gems as post-stream rewards. With this and last month's Square Enix stream, we went from 3,000 to 6,000 gems and rewards. Do you think they'll follow Japan's path and Global will get 6,000 monthly gem bonus from the stream too? I'm sure we'll eventually get to 6,000 gems. The thing is that remember that Japan is always like, what is it? They're about a year ahead of us. So their rewards on a month-by-month basis always look more fantastical than ours. But if you look mathematically at what Global has received compared to what Japan received at a comparable point in time, Global has been better off. We've received more bonuses, more free pulls, more everything than Japan got at that time. So I would not be nitpicking that Japan gets some bonus gems as their post-stream rewards that are slightly higher than what we're getting right now. It all evens out in the end, or we benefit more, and that's my opinion. Arrow?
Yeah, I mean, we get content that JP doesn't. Like, we just got this new Abyss, so that probably made up a good bit of the gems we, from an OP stream. I'll take more content over just free gems just cause any day, personally. So, and also we have foresight, guys, where like Chris was saying, JP doesn't. They just get the monthly report, so they know what's coming that month, but they can't guess, oh, this guy's going to be busted like the next month and the next month following. And sometimes those players will pull on things and be right, and sometimes they'll pull on something and be like, oh God, this was a horrible decision. I see it all the time.
So that's my thoughts on that.
Zoroastrusta says in chat, isn't Japan having a free in every banner? I do not know what Japan is doing, but I'll also point out that in global right now, we are getting off, what is it, a month and a half of free banner pulls, right? We're just ending a month and a half of free banner pulls, so I think it's kind of silly to say that we're not getting free banner pulls too, quite a bit. Again, I think it's silly to make comparisons between where Japan is right now and where global is right now, because we're at two very different points in the game, and global is doing things a little differently. Macnell, do you have any thoughts?
If anything, I'd say Japan should get more than us. They don't, but they should, because they are bad at testing the versions of the game. They have to put up with many more bugs, which when the event comes to global, they usually already have the way to fix it, and we don't have to deal with the same. With the past raid, that we had a much easier time than Japan. They realized the mistake and made it easier for global. So come on, complaining that global doesn't get maybe 1 or 2 free pulls when Japan did, and ignoring everything else that we get. We're basically spoiled by Square Enix. There's no reason to complain at all.
And we'll answer one last question. Whitegraph asks, have you guys plotted out your polls, and if so, how far out? Have you planned your Dimensions End teams? And are there any bursts weapons you are going to pity? I'll go first. I have not plotted out my polls at all. I haven't even plotted out my polls for this month. I do not have my teams planned for any Dimensions End. And while I am considering pitying some burst weapons going forward, after the burn of having to pity Arden's weapon, I'm reconsidering that plan going forward. Because it seemed like a great idea at the time, and after actually spending the 125,000 gems on it, I changed my mind. It's painful to have to spend that much on a single weapon, so I reconsidered that plan. Arrow?
I have one burst only I plan to absolutely pity, and everybody already knows what it is, but I'm going to say it again anyway. Furion, man, that's my boy. But outside of that, any burst I get, it's cool. But I've already learned I'm not going to be luck sacking them. I only have 2, and I've been pulling like mad on banners, it feels like. So just throwing that out there. Don't rely on them. LDs are more important. Think about it. Wouldn't you rather get potentially multiple LDs for various characters off of 125k or 1 BT for one character? Like, I don't know about you, but I'd rather have multiple LD characters, especially knowing in the future we're going to get level 80, which is going to introduce a whole new mechanic called calls. And you're going to want LDs so you can have answers to certain situations and fights with those calls. So LD all the way. I will not pity most of them. I don't really plan much. I got to tell you guys, I plan for my favorites. Beyond that, anything else, I sometimes just pick on a whim. I think my last on a whim character would have to be, I'm trying to think, I guess it would be Arden, because somebody decided to pay me a bunch of money for the to support the TCC podcast, and I purpled that guy, and I've been using him for content. I have 2 good videos of him up so far. I hope to make many more for the guy who supported us. Thank you so much for that. For DE tiers, no, I don't plan that stuff too hard, except for like a week before. I might plan out a team, but sometimes I don't run the team in the end that I thought I would run, because I'll start playing the stage and get a feel for it, decide I totally was wrong with what I thought could beat it, and I have to swap it out. So, yeah, just don't. I guess for me, just being too hard on planning makes the game boring. I like having some idea for my favorites, but beyond that, I just play on a whim.
Yeah, same here. Hashtag don't live in the future. I know we have a lot of benefit from the foresight, but if you keep too focused on future polls, future fights, future characters, you lose sight of what's right in front of you. You might be missing some characters who are available in the game right now that you might have a lot of fun. You might discover you really like that kind of playstyle, but you disregard them either because you think they're not, they don't fit your rigid plan polls for the next 6 months, or they are not very often seen in JP videos. Come on, play the game your own way. You should play, after you play a little while, you should know what kind of character you want. You don't need to plan more than 2 weeks or 1 month ahead. Just check each character, check your current roster, and decide at the time: do I want that one? Does it fit well on my roster? And if so, pull. If not, skip. And DE, even less important to plan for right now. It's been heavily power crapped. DE fights now are far from being the hardest content the game has to offer. So I see no point in planning any future teams. When a new DE drops, I just slap together a team with my recent characters and try it. It usually works.
Yeah, and I think that's a great note to end it on for this week. So looking ahead, next week we will only have one new event dropping the night of November 10th. It's Kurosame's event, the Ice Reaper. After that, the following week, we will get Ultimate Bahamut and Dimensions End Tier 17 on the night of November 16th, followed by Gao's Lost Chapter Wild Child of the Veldt. On November 24th will be a new character event, it'll be Gladiolus event, followed by the start of the Black 5-day sale on November 26th, and then I believe there will be a Square Enix community stream on November 30th following that. And with that, I don't know how Mark does the closing things, so I will apologize. But Macnol, do you want to do any shoutouts for yourself?
Well, it's been shouted out a lot from you guys before, so thank you for the constant promotion. But yeah, if anybody wants to find my guides and the kind of content I make for the game, you can go to DissidiaFFOO.com. There's always a new boss guide whenever a new event drops. Usually give or take a couple of days, because I don't do research beforehand. I just try the fight myself and study it and try different teams to see what works. Then I write the guide. And I'll see you around. Come to Discord if you want to talk to me or to other hosts.
Arrow, any shoutouts?
I want to thank our mod team. Thank you guys. And I know it's been a bit of a hectic week. I do thank you guys though for helping us all the time. And shout out to Shara one more time. Congratulations on that wonderful charity stream. It was very fun when I stepped in the few times I did. I had a lot of fun hanging out with you guys. Thank you guys for all your support. We had a hype train today. Thank you so much for that as well. Anything else, Crease?
I think that's it. Thank you to the Tonberry Troupe for all the infographics and all the information you provide for the characters. Thank you to all of our mods and supporters, all of our collaborators, including Black Cloud, Shara, Ricky, Shrew, TCC founders, Pierre and Mark, who couldn't join us tonight. Anyone else I forgot? The design team, Dreamy, Jin Lee, HaateXIII, Ryan is the bomb. And all of our lovely viewers who come and watch us live or watch us on YouTube or anywhere else that you can listen to our podcast. Thank you very much. And with that, we are going to end it here. So have a good night, and we will see you next week. Okay,